300 of the world's top off-road UTV race teams poured into Laughlin, Nevada to compete on one of the roughest and most challenging off-road race courses on the planet. They battled side by side off the start line and braved the searing heat, chalky dust, and torturous Mojave Desert for a chance to win hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash and prizes and a brand new 2017 Polaris RZR XP Turbo. Who took home the gold and who was crowned the world champion? You're about to find out. This is the 2017 Polaris RZR UTV World Championship, powered by Monster Energy, right now on the World of X.
That was an amazing run. Oh my brain!
Goodness me!
Oh, are you serious?
3 years ago, UTV Underground owners Joey DiGiovanni and the Martelli brothers dreamt up and produced the first ever UTV World Championship. The World Championship now draws the best of the best from around the globe. Over 300 racers traveled to Laughlin, Nevada to compete in the grueling contest. For the Safecraft Desert Championship, the field was set to battle for 10 treacherous laps for a total of 160 miles of hell. For the Method Race Wheels Short Course Championship, the racers would complete 3 of the brutal 16-mile laps, making their race nearly 50 miles long. The Got Sand Youth Race was a 30-minute timed competition that took place on the infield. Saturday, 9:45 a.m., the stacked field of professional desert UTV racers began to line up and prepare to battle. The Safecraft Desert Championship was about to begin, and for the 3rd year in a row, there was a new record turnout. Over 100 of the world's best desert UTV racers sat in staging, waiting nervously.
We're at the UTV World Championships. This event every year gets bigger and bigger, and you know, the blood's boiling right now, man. It's ready to go.
This has got that land rush start, so I think they're starting us like 18 wide, and we're gonna try to cram 18 people into one little small corner.
It's a dead engine start, 10 cars straight into the first corner. It's gonna be checkers or wreckers right here, man. This makes or breaks the race.
I'm feeling the pressure right now, but it's good pressure, and I'm happy to be where I'm at, and to have that target on your back means you're doing well.
The hardest part of the day is making sure that you're keeping on pace and keeping on track. You can lose a lot of time over 10 laps.
This is a loop race and it's only 16 miles. Stacking this many competitors in a 16-mile course, you know, you're going to be picking off, if you can, one guy every 30 seconds to a minute.
The dust is probably my biggest concern right now. Track conditions, I think, are obviously going to get 10 times worse. The first lap, it's going to be completely different than lap 8 or 9.
What everybody called a golf car not too long ago is a proper off-road race car. And not only can you go racing with it, you can have a lot of fun just out on the normal trails.
I actually got a little goosebumps on my neck, man. It's exciting. There's like 5 rows in front of me. I think there's 18 per row. We got a nice breeze. Seriously, I'm like excited.
Each row started every 30 seconds apart, and they were carefully tracked throughout the race to calculate their final time on course, referred to as their corrected time. The racers would compete with a co-driver at their side, like most desert races. And a hot pit was provided so they could take on fuel, fresh tires, and make repairs. The seconds ticked down. Race director Donald Jackson dropped the green flag, and they were off. Number 978, Dustin Jones, who was lined up on the inside of row 1, flew down the course and took the whole shot leading into turn 1 for the 3rd year in a row. Heading into turn 2, Mitch Guthrie Jr. made an aggressive pass on Jason Murray and moved into 2nd place. The former UTV World Champion was off to a great start. The 2nd row left the start line in a plume of dust and dirt. 920 Pete Libby executed an inside-outside move and stole the lead, followed by 930 Tyler Greaves and 971 Wayne Matlock. Libby held his ground through turn 2 as the chaseback went door to door in the infield. Back up front at race mile 1.5, the leaders were heading out into the desert. it was still Dustin Jones out front, with the 2016 UTV World Champion Mitch Guthrie Jr. hot on his tail, followed by Murray Racing and the rest of the chase pack. Moments later, the third pack of Safecraft Desert Championship racers flew off the line. Dan Fisher from Lone Star Racing jumped out front and led the pack through turn 1. Jacob Carver was right on his bumper, followed by Wes Miller and Craig Scanlon in his SMG Polaris Razor. Wes Miller and Craig Scanlon both made a move early heading into turn 2, passing Jacob Carver on the inside. Seconds later, Scanlon and Miller came up on an overturned vehicle, and as Scanlon dodged the pileup, he made contact with Miller, bouncing his car outside and on its lid. Fortunately, there were no injuries in the melee. Meanwhile, the Row 2 leaders hit the desert, with Pete Libby still out front, followed by Greaves and Pamela Hall, who now sat in third. The Row 2 chase pack came through shortly after, including Bernard Gomez, Robbie Gordon, Jim Beaver in the Polaris Star Car, as well as Dynamic Racing. Near the front, Mitch Guthrie Jr. attempted to charge forward and pass Dustin Jones for the lead. However, he began to experience mechanical issues and lost power. Jason Murray moved past the former champion into second place. It was a disappointing development for Guthrie. Minutes later, Dustin Jones came through the Super ATV Proving Grounds, still out front. Jason Murray, who now sat in second, began applying pressure to Jones. Moments later, Justin Lambert, David Martinez, and Logan Gastel came through, skipping across the treacherous whoops. Back at the start line, Row 4 rocketed towards turn 1. Ryan Laidlaw took the whole shot and went door-to-door with Katie Vernola. Nearly 100 Desert Warriors took to the field in a hail of dirt and dust. The crowd cheered as each row left the start and battled for position early on. But for off-road legend Larry Rossler, the day would end early. Larry went door-to-door with several racers on turn 1 and 2 and sustained some insurmountable damage to his car. It was a tough break for the seasoned desert racer. It's lap 2 of 10 at the Safecraft Desert Championship, and the Land Rush Start and brutal Nevada desert have begun to take their toll early on. 12 vehicles are already out of the race, including Hall of Fame off-road champion Larry Rossler. 971 Wayne Matlock of Alpine, California moved into the lead, continued to push hard, and set a blistering pace. He started in the second row and passed nearly 20 vehicles, including Mark Holes, who found himself stalled in the middle of a corner. Wayne was hoping for some good luck this year at the championship. Just behind Wayne sat Dan Fisher in the number 910 Can-Am Lone Star Racing UTV. Dan stayed just outside Matlock's dust trail, waiting for him to make a mistake or suffer a mechanical issue. As the leaders passed through the main pit and started their assault on lap 3, it was former UTV World Champion Brandon Sims who sat in third place. Sims is a consistent threat at every UTV race and not someone you want behind you applying pressure. Just behind Brandon Sims sat Can-Am monster athletes Jason Murray and Dustin Jones. The two drivers mixed it up for the next 17 miles, pushing each other to catch the leader, Wayne Matlock. Craig Scanlon, driver of the SMG Motorsports 931 Polaris Turbo Razor, blew a belt suddenly and was forced to pull over. Co-driver Keith Redstrom made the belt change quickly on course, but the team decided to stop at the main pit to grab a splash of fuel and do a once-over on the car. They lost 16 minutes during the stop and now had some work to do to get back into contention. Brothers Jason and Derek Murray, who had the third fastest time on lap 1, were forced into their pit as well on lap 2 after sustaining damage to their rear trailing arm. Their crew decided not to fix the bent arm and sent the team back out on course, hoping it could withstand the remainder of the race. Meanwhile, back out in the desert, the pack of hungry and anxious racers were in an all-out battle against each other and the brutal Nevada terrain. Number 944 Matt Burrows in his Monster Energy-powered Can-Am made his way into the infield and out onto the desert course for his third lap. Up ahead at race mile 2 of lap 3, 910 Dan Fisher passed the 971 of Wayne Matlock and took the lead. 15 minutes later, Brandon Sims, who started on row 3, caught Dustin Jones at race mile 10 and was beginning to gain valuable track position, passing cars that started minutes ahead of him. Behind Sims, it was a dogfight between Phil Blurton, Justin Lambert, and Dustin Jones. Reese Millen, in his 967 Polaris RZR Turbo, had a strong first 2 laps, but he experienced some mechanical issues on lap 3. He suffered a broken axle and lost 12 minutes during the repair. After being down 12 minutes due to mechanical issues on the second lap, Craig Scanlon began to make up time and push back up to the front of the pack on his third lap. At the end of lap 3, Monster Energy athlete Justin Lambert gambled on pitting early and decided to get his fuel stop out of the way. Fellow Polaris RZR factory teammate Brandon Schuler of Jagged X Racing looked smooth as he finished his third lap and started out on lap 4. On lap 4, the lead pack of UTVs was made up of Dan Fisher, Wayne Matlock, Justin Lambert, Phil Blurton, Bill Zemak, Brandon Sims, and Monster athletes Jason and Derek Murray, whose team was keeping an eye on their bent trailing arm as they passed the main pit. Back in the naturally aspirated class, Jonathan McVeigh held down first place. In second place was Kristen Matlock. Kristen is a seasoned desert racer and a come-from-behind threat at any race. In third place was 1920 Andre Isaac in his Yamaha YXZ. He was just ahead of Jeremiah Stagg, who was ready to pounce if Isaac made a mistake. As the race wore on, the athletes battled through lap 4 and into lap 5. 2939 Michael Isom moved out front and began to lead the unlimited class. Isom started on the 8th row in the very back of the field, but had somehow managed to navigate the thick dust and searing heat to jump into the top 5 in his class. The UTV World Championship has grown tremendously in the past 3 years into a full 3 days of can't-miss festivities and events. This year marked the introduction of the first annual UTV Underground Pit Crew Challenge. After some heated battles early on, it was the team of Murray Racing who edged out second place Adrian Oriana and went home with a huge stash of prizes. For the third year in a row, a huge pack of UTV fans lined up to take their turn flying through the championship racecourse during the Family Fun Poker Run. Nearly 200 UTV enthusiasts took to the course, making the poker run a smash hit. The UTV World Championship also hosted the largest UTV tech and contingency event in the sport's history. The who's who of the UTV industry showed up to support their racers, the event, and showcase their products to a crowd of thousands. This year's host hotel, the beautiful Riverside Resort Hotel and Casino, held the massive gathering, which included hundreds of UTV industry companies and manufacturers right in front of their historic hotel on the Colorado River. While the race teams registered their vehicles, signed autographs, and met with their fans, Polaris Industries led the effort as title sponsor and handed out tons of free goodies. The official MC of the event, Tim Shellman, was on the mic entertaining the fans and interviewing all of the vendors. It's the halfway point of the Safecraft Desert Championship at the 3rd Annual Polaris RZR UTV World Championship, powered by Monster Energy. And over 25 of the nearly 100 racers that left the start line have been sidelined with mechanical failures. The remaining pack were all duking it out for a shot at winning a brand new 2017 Polaris XP Turbo. The most brutal part of the UTV World Championship desert course is the Super ATV Proving Grounds. This section separates the men from the boys, and valuable time can be made up or lost depending on how dialed your shock setup is and how heavy your right foot is. Former 2016 UTV World Champion Ryan Laidlaw started the day strong, but on lap 5 near race mile 7, out of nowhere, Ryan came across a stuck vehicle on course and veered quickly to avoid the car. It was too little, too late. And just like that, the former champion was sidelined. Up ahead in the lead pack, 2016 UTV World Champion Brandon Sims was still in the mix in 3rd place, when suddenly his race car lost power and went into limp mode.
Limp mode? Yeah.
He was forced to pull over and reset his machine. Meanwhile, the carnage continued to unfold. Jason and Derek Murray of Murray Racing came flying over a blind crest on lap 5 and landed right in the back of a stalled vehicle on course. Luckily, no one was injured, but the damage to their car was extensive. As the field of racers finished their 5th lap and began their 6th, the race course was mangled and full of dislodged rocks and debris. Many of the racers who were out of contention for a win in their class began to focus on just finishing the punishing marathon. Former UTV World Champion Justin Lambert, who set in 3rd place, began to battle with SMG driver Craig Scanlon. Craig was down a lap on time, but that didn't stop him from going door to door with his fellow Polaris RZR teammate. The two diced it up and ran clean as they encountered lap traffic. Dan Fisher, meanwhile, who had maintained the lead for most of lap 5, fell off the mark in 6, losing several minutes to the lead pack. Back in the naturally aspirated class, 1923 Benjamin Bischoff and 1910 Joe Loomis were posting great lap times and held down key positions in the top 5. Meanwhile, 944 Phil Blurton suddenly appeared on the top of the leaderboard on corrected time. Blurton had posted very fast lap times all day. After starting on the 3rd row, he had moved past dozens of cars on course and now had the lead, but by mere seconds. The Safecraft Desert Championship was proving to be one of the most intense battles in the desert this year. The 2017 Polaris RZR UTV World Championship on ABC, brought to you by Polaris RZR, fuel your passion, and Monster Energy, a lifestyle in a can, and Odyssey Battery, setting the new standard for power, life, and durability. And Fox Shocks, redefine your limits.
Rallying has been my world since day one. My dad was already established as a racer in the US. I had the opportunity to work with him and go to school. I would build the cars in the off season, and all of the parts that were left over, I built my first rally car and I started rallying the California Rally Series. I had free tires, I had some free shocks, and I had half a car that I kind of built together. It's always been my passion, and still today, it's one of the only other forms of sport, ball sport, motorsport, it's rally. From a company standpoint, we've had many highs, many successes. We've won US Rally Championships, we've won US Drift Championships, World Drift titles, Pikes Peak, multiple class winner and overall winner. And then I've always had a passion for Baja. I've raced down there in BC cars, I've raced legs and sections with trophy truck teams and class 1 teams, but the UTV market was something that maybe I'd kind of looked past at first. We were kind of stuck in the world of rallycross based on sponsorship and the space that we were occupying. And we actually started to build a vehicle that we called Formula Cross, which was taking parts off an ATV or a quad, building our own frame, and then putting all of those components on that. One of my employees owned a Polaris 900, and he's like, you really need to look at these things. They just came out with this 1000. I think maybe we should shift gears. And well, I guess you could say he's right. You're driving it in and you're driving it out. This thing's a full-blown rally car. This is kind of the first space that I invested in personally because I believed in the space. I believed in the momentum that it had, and we built this car behind us here. Well, now this one car has kind of blossomed our business into building pre-runners, building components, building cages, building composite parts, and building, cars for other competitors that come race us. in the same design as this one here. What the UTV space has allowed is for manufacturers to produce vehicles that are so even, yet so dynamic and so good as a production vehicle, that within the limitations of the rules and the amount of money that you can actually spend, it makes it really even from the driver perspective and the driver input. Okay, I might have a higher skill set than some people, and some people may have more experience and a higher skill set than me, but the vehicles kind of even that out. And that's part of the excitement of the competition. You can't come in with a trophy truck with 900 horsepower and 80 guys and 40 chase trucks and helicopters and all of that. It won't really buy you anything in these vehicles. It's how you drive the vehicle, how you complement that belt. It's another opportunity to showcase what these vehicles can be utilized for. Short course, King of the Hammers, desert racing. Now you can go rally them, and I think that's really encouraging. It shows sustainability within a market and it allows people like myself to invest into it, and it only produces a better product for the general public.
It's the final push of the Safecraft Desert Championship, and nearly half of the racers that tore off the start line had fallen victim to the unforgiving Nevada racecourse, which was now a graveyard of broken machines. And many of those left on the course were still struggling with mechanical gremlins. Among them was Wayne Matlock, who fell off the mark on his 7th lap. Wayne spent nearly 20 minutes trying to repair his UTV and was able to get back in the race. But a delay of such magnitude put him out of contention for the win. Number 964, Mark Holes, had a rough start to his race day, but thanks to some consistent fast lap times, he had positioned himself to make a strike into the top 10 as he battled his way through the desert course on lap 7. Justin Lambert of Cognito Motorsports remained the physical leader on lap 7. He drove smooth and fast, and he posted the fastest lap time of the pack by 30 seconds. However, lurking dangerously close to the former champion on corrected time was the newcomer Phil Blurton from Loomis, California. Because Blurton started on row 3, he had a 1-minute safety net. If Lambert wasn't careful, Phil could catch him on corrected time and steal the win from behind. The UTV World Championship is part of the Best in the Desert Championship Series, and many of the competitors were vying for both a win and points towards their championship season. After experiencing some overheating issues earlier in the race, Brandon Sims was back in action and began to climb his way back towards the top 10. Sims is an experienced racer and kept his focus on finishing and earning important points towards his season. Lone Star Racing's Dan Fisher, who gave up the lead on lap 6, was nowhere close to calling it quits. He continued to push hard on lap 8 and was determined to earn a top 5 finish. Formula Drift and Rally Racing champion Reese Millen lost valuable time earlier in the race due to some mechanical issues. However, he continued to push hard during the final stretch of the marathon contest. Back in the naturally aspirated class, 1920 Andre Isaac had moved into the lead. He was driving fast and aggressive, just ahead of 1923 Benjamin Bischoff, who was determined to press the leader and force him to make a mistake. Joe Loomis set in 3rd, ahead of 1932 Matt Kraft, who was holding down 4th. The brutal UTV World Championship racecourse continued to take its toll on the field during lap 9. 935 Bill Zemak, who had moved into 3rd place on corrected time at the end of lap 7, was taken out, as was the former Mint 400 champion Dustin Jones of S3 Power Sports. As race leader Justin Lambert approached the hot pit at the end of lap 9, his belt began slipping and he was losing power. He was forced to stop at the pit and have his team swap the belt before heading out for his final lap. The team had no idea that 944 Phil Blurton had continued to press his pace and was within striking distance on corrected time. Meanwhile, Jagged X Racing's Brandon Schuler was still in the hunt. As he came through the checkpoint and left for his final lap, he set in 5th place. With 6 desert championships under his belt, Brandon is always a threat in the home stretch. Holes Racing Products owner and UTV builder Mark Holes continued to stay in the mix on his final lap. Mark had posted top 5 lap times all day and had worked himself into 3rd place overall. As the clock began to wind down on the final lap, all of the racers who remained in the hunt for a podium began to dig deep. 1920 Andre Isaac out of Las Vegas, Nevada was still charging out front in his Yamaha YXZ, leading the naturally aspirated class. 1923 Benjamin Bischoff, meanwhile, held down second as they hit the halfway point of the final lap. 1910 Joe Loomis was still pressing hard in 3rd place, ready to pounce if the leaders faltered. Heading into the final stretch in the overall lead, it was Cognito Motorsports' Justin Lambert out front, followed by Phil Blurton. Then Mark Holes, Dan Fisher, and Brandon Schuler. The pack rounded the final turns of the course, and Lambert came flying across the finish line. However, seconds later, Phil Blurton came screaming down the final stretch. After a few tense moments, the best in the desert timing booth made the announcement. Phil Blurton from No Limit Side by Side out of Loomis, California took the win.
#1 winner right there.
And was crowned the 2017 UTV World Champion.
Car wouldn't start on the starting line, so we started literally like dead last in 3rd row. Just pushed super hard the first 3 laps, and then he kind of calmed me down and paced me the last 7 so we could finish.
2939 Michael Isom, hailing from St. George, Utah, took the Unlimited Production Class Championship and finished 4th overall, which was the best finish of any Unlimited Production vehicle in World Championship history.
We started on the very last row. He was navigating for me, telling me straight, turn right, following flasher lights. It was awesome. We had an amazing time.
In naturally aspirated, it was 1920 Andre Isaac who took the win, having run a clean race all day. And in the sportsman class, 2999 Robert Parsons with Fast Track Racing crossed the finish line first. Here's a look at all of the top 3 finishers in each class for the Safecraft Desert Championship.
My name's Dallas Gonzalez, and I'm from Fort Mojave, Arizona. I heard about the UTV World Championships from our friend Eric, and my parents told me about it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I want to go race. I like the UTV World Championships because it is like, it's real flat. There's not that many jumps. If there's a jump, you can just hold it wide open through it. And the corners, you can just hold it wide. You don't have to let off at all. My favorite thing to do during the races is get the whole shot and pass people. When I'm going to hunt somebody down and going to pass them, it gets me really excited. And, oh, come on, you can do it, you can do it. And then I'll like ram them a couple times, and then they'll move, and then I'll go past them. I think a lot of kids are getting into UTVs because they're more fun, because it's like driving a real car. I raced last year and I had a big DNF. My car, it started shooting flames out through the seat, and then I knew I was done. I was not as happy because I kept losing races, but I was happy that I got to drive the car and have fun. It's still fun no matter what, even if you lose or win. Some of my favorite racers are like Mitch Guthrie, Bryce Minzy, RJ Anderson. If I had any keys to anybody's car, it would be RJ's XP1K4 car. I like how it's fast and it looks light. It is really cool how Polaris is giving away a free Razor 170 to both winners of the stock and the production. I'm planning on winning that car.
Every year, the UTV World Championship draws the best and brightest youth racers from around the world to compete on a modified version of the championship racecourse. The kids show up in their Polaris Razor 170s, some stock, some heavily modified, and compete in two different classes, 170cc and the faster 250cc class. This year, 53 kids came out to compete, and they lined up and blasted off the start line side by side, just like the pros. They would race for a full 30 minutes in front of a crowd of thousands cheering them on. In the 250 class, Dallas Gonzalez from Fort Mojave, Arizona, moved out front right off the start. He was followed closely by Clayton Mickle and Caden Danbury. In the 170 class, Luke Knupp, Jackson Lambert, and Aaron Cuevas from Riverside, California, formed a lead pack and began to battle for position. As the kids began to tear off laps, the infield became a dusty war zone. The parents cheered all the kids on as they drove like champs around the bumpy and challenging racecourse. Many of the kids entered in the youth race had parents racing in the adult pro classes, including Jackson Lambert, Stockton Bullock, Ryder Van Beekum, Brooklyn Leverton, Enzo and Christian DiGiovanni, Wyatt Matlock, and more. As the clock ticked down and the kids flew across the finish line, it was Dallas Gonzalez who finished first and won the Youth 250 class, followed by Luke Knupp in the 170 class. All of the kids ran hard and showed how bright the future is for the sport of UTV racing. Cody Bradbury's introduction into off-road racing started on two wheels, but after a serious crash, he was faced with either giving up his passion for competition or climbing into a caged vehicle. Quitting was not an option, so moving to four wheels and a cage was the obvious choice. He quickly became a force to be reckoned with in short course, winning a championship in only his second year of competition.
I mean, really, it started in BMX. My dad bought us some bicycles, my brother and I, and we went down and raced at the local track here in Paris, and he got us dirt bikes when we came of age, and we all broke collarbones within about 3 months of each other, every one of us. My mom kind of cut it off there, and my dad went and bought a Polaris XP 900, and a local race was close to us in Lake Elsinore, and my dad decided that I should go do it, and I went out and did that and did pretty good, got third in my first try in a car that wasn't really a race car, and from there I built a car, and the rest is history. The Polaris platform for me made sense. That's what I started racing in 2013. My dad already had one. It was a good car. It worked really, really well. And then, in 2014 when they came out with the XP 1000 platform, they were ahead of their time. There was nothing else that was even competitive. The cars are still the best cars today. They're the most competitive cars. They're the best all-around handling cars. So it's just something for me that made sense. For the UTV World Championship, I'll be racing a 2017 Polaris XP Turbo. It's all built by Holtz, running Walker shocks, Walker wheels, GBC tires. It's my normal works car. I'll do a couple small changes with tire size, and other than that, it's going to be what I race at works. My friend Rusty, he's kind of the one that introduced me to the UTV World Championship. At the time, he was doing all my photos and any of my video stuff for my press releases on my dirt series racing, and he said, "Hey, come check this thing out. It's going to be pretty big." I never expected it to be as big as it was. It was huge. When I showed up and the tech line, it took a couple hours to get through the tech line, and there were so many vendors there, and it seems like every year, more and more manufacturers are getting involved, and it's growing. It's good to see. In the short course class at UTV World Championship, the field's super deep. You have, guys like RJ, who is going to be a guy to beat no matter where he comes. Mitchie, Bo, Piplick, a lot of the same guys I race, even at works, those guys are still the guys to beat, but it's tough to win, and there's always the dark horse too, the guys that go fast, and if you can put it all together for one race, it's, you can come out on top. Anyone can really win. You just got to have a little bit of luck and be able to go fast. Polaris giving the cars away to the winners of each race, that's huge. I think that's what gets a lot of the draw. Off-road racing hasn't notoriously been known for big prizes or anything like that. It's more of a boy at the end, and big thanks to Polaris. I mean, they've gotten behind the UTV World Championship and just UTV racing in general. It's been a huge help to have them.
The 2017 Polaris RZR UTV World Championship on ABC. Brought to you by UTV Underground Garage, the #1 UTV parts and accessories superstore. And Safecraft, the choice for motorsports safety equipment. And Method Race Wheels, lighter, stronger, faster. And Got Sand, apparel and more at gotsand.com. There were 4 classes total entered in the Method Race Wheel Short Course Championship this year. The fastest class was Pro Turbo, followed by naturally aspirated 900 and 700 800. The pack of anxious racers sat at the start line, ready to do battle for 3 of the 16-mile laps. The green flag dropped, and the first row of UTV warriors tore off the start line for the start of the Method Race Wheel Short Course Championship. Within seconds, number 4512 Bo Barron rocketed into first and took the whole shot. Defending world champion Mitch Guthrie Jr. made contact with several racers and got stuck in the chase back on the exit of turn 1. 30 seconds later, row 2 left the start, and it was Mark Queen from Lake Havasu, Arizona, who blew past the entire field and took the inside line, but it didn't last long. Seconds later, on the entrance of turn 2, Dustin Jones made a move inside and took the lead. Back on the start line for row 3, RJ Anderson showed why he's an off-road champion and a threat at every race. He started his Walker Evans Polaris RZR in mere seconds and ripped past the entire field into first, just ahead of Garrick Lastra. Ryan Piplick came in hot and was tagged from behind by 4528 Shane Dowden, which sent Shane into a barrel roll down course. At the same time, Manuel Escarel made contact, and he rolled as well. Luckily, no one was injured. All of the racers were vying for a chance to bring home cash and prizes, as well as impress their sponsors and fans at home. But the UTV World Championship course was brutal. The racers would have to go all out for 3 laps on a dusty, rocky, torn-up race course that had been chewed up from the morning's desert race. Back up front in the lead pack, 4514 Robert Van Beekom stole the lead early from Bo Barron, who sat right on his bumper. They were followed closely by 4521 Cody Bradbury as they raced out into the open desert. Suddenly, Cody lost control of his race car and went tumbling down the course. He was okay, but his race was over in an instant. 4501 Mitch Guthrie Jr. slid past him and into 3rd place. Meanwhile, 4537 Dustin Jones led the second group out into the desert just ahead of Ryan Holmes. Former UTV World Champion and Mint 400 champion Brandon Sims wasn't far behind, however. Brandon began picking off multiple racers and passed 3 cars in one quick move. Back in the row 3 pack, number 4531 RJ Anderson pushed hard as he led a hungry group of experienced UTV racers into the desert. Meanwhile, up front, after waiting patiently for a place to pass, 4512 Bo Barron rocketed past 4514 Robert Van Beekom. Dustin Jones and Ryan Holmes battled in the dust. Ryan saw an opening and passed Jones in a hail of dust and dirt. 4531 RJ Anderson wasted no time catching up to the second row pack. He picked off multiple racers as he charged forward towards the leaders. Because Anderson started on the 3rd row, he had a 1-minute cushion on corrected time. If the leaders weren't careful, he would soon be in the lead, even though he was physically in 20th place. Up front, 4512 Bo Barron came through the Super ATV Proving Grounds first. Just behind him, 4501 Mitch Guthrie Jr. had caught up to Robert Van Beekom. Mitchie took an inside line and passed Robert to move into 2nd place physically. Ryan Halls came through next, followed by Dustin Jones, who was trying to work his way around a slower racer. Brandon Sims crept up on his tail, however, and suddenly dropped the pedal, took the outside line, and passed him. Up front, 4512 Bo Barron maintained his lead, but 4501 Mitch Guthrie Jr. was closing in. Bo has never won the World Championship, but is a consistent course competitor with a rich history in off-road racing. Guthrie, on the other hand, won the World Championship in 2016 and the Mint 400 in 2017. Not the person you want to see in your rearview mirror. 45-14, Robert Van Beekom held on to third place for the time being. He was just ahead of 45-38 Ryan Hulse and 45-13 Brandon Sims. Dustin Jones remained in the hunt as well. Meanwhile, number 136 Ray Bullock had established a good lead in the naturally aspirated class. Number 125 Chris Johnson and 117 Will Rogers were also in the mix with Bullock. Behind them, 129 Sierra Romo was having a great day. Randy Romo's introduction to off-roading began with riding bikes and quads in the Dumont Dunes with his family and friends just outside of his hometown of Henderson, Nevada.
We started going to the sand dunes in 1992. Some friends took us out there to Dumont Sand Dunes and we were immediately hooked. Of course, every year, we had to have the latest and greatest quad and dirt bike or whatever was available, and it's all kind of led up to racing. For 17, I'm running a 2017 non-turbo 1000 and a 17 turbo for Works. Both of them are done by Hulse Racing. We bought the 900 from Cody Bradbury. Sierra ended up racing it, her first race at Prim in the women's class. Very first race out, she took third place. She decided to make it a full-time thing, so we ended up contacting GSP Performance and had them build her a brand new center seat. Watching her race out there, I was a little jealous, so I said, let's go ahead and build another car for me. And then the wife got into it, and she's like, well, if you guys are out there racing, I want to have some of the fun too. So we ended up having Pete build us another car.
I had been wanting to race with them the whole time, and it was kind of fun. I kind of felt left out when they'd come off the track and they're like, oh, we hit this jump and then this turn in the back, and you weren't in the conversation, and I knew I could do it, but they both did not want me to race because they're like, you're the mom, like we need to know where you are all the time. And so finally I was like, okay, well, if I get a car and I promise not to jump and I won't go fast, can I do it? And they're like, yeah, that's fine. So then my first race, I get out there and they have pictures of me jumping and going fast. The funnest part is just all of us being together. I mean, our daughter, our friends, everything just as one unit. So everything we do is as a family.
My first race, it was very nerve-wracking because I have had zero race, background at all. I've only had the dunes and that was it. So I was very nervous going into it. And I started out in a women's class and I was dominating the girls, and it was a little too easy, so I decided to give myself a big challenge and go up with the big dogs. I first heard about the UTV World Championship when my dad raced it last year. I think the race course is going to be really rough and brutal, and it's going to be a matter of keeping your car together. This year is going to be my first year, so I don't have any high expectations of coming out on top. I mean, that'd be amazing, but you have the best of the best. So I just want to finish because UTV World Championships is one race that is very hard to finish.
It's the end of lap 1 of the Method Race Wheels Short Course Championship, and the action thus far was intense. As the overall and Pro Turbo class leader, Bo Barron, came into the infield, disaster struck. He rolled his Polaris RZR on the chewed-up edge of a steep left turn and ended up on his roof, helpless. Mitch Guthrie Jr. took advantage of this mishap, passed Barron, and moved into first place physically. Having won the UTV World Championship in 2016 and the Mint 400 a month earlier, Mitchie was poised to run away with the win. Moments later, seemingly out of nowhere, 45-27 Randy Romo got by Barron and was now physically second on course. Romo was still ahead of the chase pack. 45-09 Matt Hancock came through next. Matt was another row 1 starter that had managed to evade the chase pack thus far, but 45-38 Ryan Hulse was in hot pursuit. Back in the lead, Mitch Guthrie Jr. was preparing to walk away with the race when tragedy struck. Mitch blew a belt, which allowed Randy Romo to fly by him and take the lead. 45-38 Ryan Hulse flew past the stranded car of Guthrie next and set his sights on Randy Romo, who is now out front in the lead. R.J. Anderson, meanwhile, began attacking Dustin Jones. Jones came flying through the Polaris Razor Arch with R.J. right on his bumper. R.J. almost lost control of the car trying to make the pass, then eventually slipped past Jones. He clocked the fastest time of the race on lap 1, and because he started on row 3, he now sat in 3rd place on corrected time. Mr. Anderson was on a mission. In the naturally aspirated class, 136 Ray Bullock maintained his lead, comfortably ahead of 117 Will Rogers and 129 Sierra Romo, as the rest of the class battled to keep pace. 148 Travis Sullivan was charging hard when he caught an edge and experienced a violent rollover. Back up front and still in first place, 45-27 Randy Romo put the pedal down. But Ryan Halls was hot on his tail, looking for a chance to move from second to first. 45-09 Matt Hancock flew by in 3rd place, followed closely by Brandon Sims. Seconds later, Sims made the pass on Hancock and moved into 3rd place. The former UTV World Champ was picking up steam fast. 45-31 R.J. Anderson caught and passed Hancock next as he continued his blistering run up the field. As the crowd waited for the race leaders to finish lap 2, it was 45-38 Ryan Holtz who emerged as the new frontrunner. He passed Randy Romo and barreled through the Razor Arch on his way out for the 3rd and final lap. Just behind Ryan, Randy Romo still sat in 2nd place, followed by Brandon Sims and R.J. Anderson. But within a mile of the start of lap 3, Sims caught up to Romo and eventually passed him, moving into 2nd place. R.J. Anderson, meanwhile, continued to apply pressure forward, hoping to force a mistake by Romo. Back in the naturally aspirated class, 136 Ray Bullock was still running strong. 45-55 Caleb Meyer, meanwhile, led the 900 class. Skylar Bullock was out front leading the 700-800 class. 129 Sierra Romo set in 4th place in naturally aspirated and looked strong at the end of lap 2. Just after the Super ATV Proving Grounds, race leader Ryan Holz ripped through, followed closely by Brandon Sims. A few minutes later, R.J. Anderson caught 45-27 Randy Romo. Romo put up a good fight, but the off-road champion got past the Henderson native within a few minutes. 45-09 Matt Hancock and 45-37 Dustin Jones came by one after another on pace for a strong finish. Up front, race leader Ryan Holz tried to extend his lead as the leaders began the final sprint towards the finish. Ryan knew he had a former UTV World Champion and an off-road prodigy behind him closing in. 45-13 Brandon Sims sat just outside of Ryan's dust trail, but continued to push hard. He was told over the radio that R.J. Anderson was gaining ground because R.J. started on the 3rd row, 30 seconds after both Ryan and Brandon. They would both need to finish 30 seconds ahead of R.J. in order to maintain their position at the finish line. In other words, go fast now. Heading into the final stretch, it was 45-38 Ryan Holz, 45-13 Brandon Sims, and 45-31 R.J. Anderson. Ryan Holz rocketed across the finish line first and was followed very closely by Sims. But it was R.J. Anderson who put it up on 2 wheels, flying across the finish, who would take the win after calculating corrected time. Anderson started on the 3rd row and passed 24 vehicles on course to take the Method Race Wheel Short Course Championship.
We did it! I got one. I've wanted this one so bad. So he came close last year and I came in 2nd right behind Mitchie. So, man, starting 3rd row, the dust was brutal. There's so many times I couldn't see a thing. I almost balled it up huge one time and kept it together there, but man, am I pumped to bring home this world championship.
Other class winners included 136 Ray Bullock, 45-55 Caleb Meyer, and 45-92 Skylar Bullock. Here's a look at all of the top 3 finishers in each class for the Method Race Wheel Short Course Championship. The Polaris UTV World Championship will return to Laughlin, Nevada, Thursday, April 5th through Sunday the 8th in 2018. For more information, visit utvunderground.com and follow us on Facebook for updates.